Welcome to the Burn Music Show. Burn is a platform for you to discover some of the newest artists in rock, metal, alt, and punk, while still engaging in topics and discussions with the pioneers from the past who lit the fuse. I'm your host, Dimitri, and let's go. Welcome to episode 2 of my podcast. For those of you who don't know, I'm a small business owner. And due to the coronavirus, my business, which is not considered an essential business, has basically been forced to temporarily close, which I'm totally okay with because social distancing is necessary to slow the virus down. But I now suddenly have a lot of free time on my hands. So what did I do? Well, I created a podcast. Now, my day-to-day business has nothing to do with music, but I do have a passion for rock and discovering and turning people onto it. So I started the Burn Music Show. And in this episode number 2, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite newer bands, and I'll give you my recommendation on the best way to discover new artists. Unearthing new bands can be amazing, but it's also a challenge. One of my favorite ways of uncovering fresh and up-and-coming artists is going to see live shows. Now, the key is getting there early enough so you can actually catch the opening acts. It's such a great feeling when you are completely unfamiliar with a band, but then unexpectedly walk away from their performance as a fan. Now, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Eddie Trunk. If not, check him out. He can be heard daily on Sirius XM Volume Channel. Anyways, Eddie Trunk just tweeted a bunch of insanely awesome YouTube videos of Van Halen opening up for Black Sabbath. I believe it was in 1978, so the same year as Van Halen's self-titled debut album came out. A little bit before my time, I was about 2 years old then, but I can tell you Van Halen in 1978 were probably not that well known. Outside of California, I bet not many people were too familiar with them. Black Sabbath, on the other hand, were already legends. I mean, they were metal gods. But, I mean, when you see these videos, Van Halen was a tough act for even Black Sabbath to follow. Those dudes were hungry and charged up. And as great as Sabbath was, they had to be at the very top of their A game every night to avoid being upstaged, which is good, right? You know, competition ends up ultimately bringing out the best in all of us. But the point is, I bet nearly every single person who was in attendance to those shows probably walked away a fan of Van Halen. And odds are many of them had no idea who or what they wore before the show. The rest is history, right? Now we can look back and say, yeah, Van Halen, they're legends, epic career. Man, but they were just starting off, and how great would that have been to be on the ground level and witness that? For me, it's happened a few times with other bands. Like I remember seeing the Stone Temple Pilots at the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago. They were opening up for the Butthole Surfers, and my mind was blown. They were amazing. Alice in Chains opening up for, Van Halen. Smashing Pumpkins opening up for Guns N' Roses. And one of my greatest memories was stumbling upon the band Korn circa 1995 at the Riviera Theater in Chicago. Korn was opening up for Megadeth. My buddy and I were at the show. We were probably in our late teens at the time, and I don't think anyone in the theater, including us, knew anything about Korn. They were brand spanking new. And Megadeth fans weren't having it. Korn literally got booed relentlessly. But my buddy and I, we were blown away. From the moment they hit the stage to their final note, we were so taken back by everything Korn was doing. Their look, their sound, it was all so new and fresh that we literally raced out the next day to go and try to find their album to buy. And it wasn't easy. We had like 3 or 4 stops. Nobody even carried it yet. It wasn't in record stores. My buddy ended up finding it. I think it was at a secondhand store. And I don't remember if he got a CD or a cassette tape, but we made copies of it on cassette. And we gave it to all our friends who were like, dudes, check this out. This band is great. And their first video dropped a month or 2 later on MTV. And essentially overnight, boom, they took off. And, you know, the point is you get to watch these bands grow, develop, and evolve. And in a sense, you're with them every step of the way. So for me personally, one of the best things to do if you're looking for new music, go check out opening bands at concerts, especially concerts you're going to attend because you like the main band. In September of 2016, I discovered another great band. So every year, Chicago hosts a weekend festival. It's called Riot Fest. It's a 3-day weekend fest filled with punk, hip-hop, rock, and alternative bands. Old bands, new groups, you name it. And throughout the city, a lot of bands will play secondary shows. They're like little off shows at local clubs. And that night, I was on my way to the Double Door in Wicker Park. By the way, Double Door was an iconic club in Chicago. They've been around for a couple of decades. They've hosted thousands of bands. Sadly, the club was recently forced to close. I believe the building sold as part of a real estate development project. But I hear rumors that they're eyeing a potential future site. So fingers crossed, but I do think Double Door will return. In the meantime, I was there to see this band called The Bronx. Now, The Bronx are a punk rock band from Southern California and one of my all-time favorite groups. I think they're arguably one of the best bands of the past 20 years, easily. And I love seeing The Bronx in concert. I know they are professional face melters live. That's what they do. They bring it. So anyways, I'm there for The Bronx. Luckily, I arrived early enough to catch the opening act. And it was a 3-piece band from St. Joseph, Missouri called Radkey. Now, you've heard the term Band of Brothers before, right? Well, Radkey literally are a band made up of 3 brothers, D, Isaiah, and Solomon. Now, I didn't know that at the time. I discovered that after the show, and it made all the sense in the world to me because they had such amazing chemistry and synergy on stage. I meant, like, the moment they hit the stage, the 3 of them shared this symbiotic relationship. It was like this constant pushing and pulling and getting inspiration from each other, and they were almost just feeding off each other. Their stage presence was on a different level than most bands these days. And they literally hit the stage at the Double Door like they were shot out of a cannon in what I could only describe as a high-octane, fist-pumping, sing-along and adventure. And they were just having a blast doing it. And I had never seen these guys before. I had never heard of them before. I didn't know any of their music. And I found myself bopping my head and singing their choruses halfway through many of the songs. Their music is just catchy and hooks you in just like that. Plus, their stage presence was like arena quality. So they look like they're having the time of their life on stage, and it rubs off on the audience. Their level of excitement and joy is highly infectious, which is important, right? This is entertainment. If the band isn't feeling it, then we're not going to feel it. Now, I'm not a big fan of labeling music, but clearly, if you had to describe or compare Radkey to anybody, most people would associate Radkey as a punk band. Bands like the Misfits and Ramones jump out as contributing influences almost instantly. But, man, Radkey is deeper than that. I'm hearing everything from blues, pop, punk, 90s era grunge, to the biggest and loudest headbanging arena rock. They have a little bit of everything. And at the end of the day, they're just a straight-up rock and roll band. Comparing them to anyone or any genre in particular won't do them justice. So, if you want to start exploring this band, I'm going to recommend you start with the album entitled Delicious Rock Noise, which is basically the band's 2016 album and a reissue of their 2015 debut entitled Dark Black Makeup. So it's basically the same album as their debut, but they've included 2 extra tracks, and these tracks are awesome. There's a cover of the Lemons' 1990 song Marvel and a truly brilliant rendition of the Teen Titans theme song. Yes, the Teen Titans theme song. But it has been plastered with Radkey's signature sound, which gives it a really cool kind of surf punk kind of vibe. It's similar to what the Ramones did covering the Spider-Man theme song. Radkey took complete ownership over this track, and if there's ever a Teen Titans reboot, the theme song belongs to Radkey. They literally own it. They've killed it, and it's hilarious to see people moshing to the Teen Titans theme song live at a show. But I'm telling you, between tracks like Romance Dong, Le Song, Dark Black Makeup, Parade It, Feed My Brain, you will have a new favorite song with every listen of this album. There literally isn't a bad song on it. Last year, they released a follow-up to it. It's an expanded EP entitled No Strange Cats, and it's just as great. It'll compel you to sit down and just listen to it. You know, when you're listening to Radkey, there's no shortage of thundering bass, pummeling drums, and the singer, frontman D, also is the lead guitar player, and he just lays down grooving guitar riffs. He's got a trademark howl and baritone vocals that are constantly on full display. It's just enjoyable music. 2 albums, too many great songs to list. And this is a good problem, okay? There is no filler, no cliche, no shtick. Just straight up rock and roll. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to create a Spotify playlist. So you can hop on to Spotify. I have a profile called Burn Music Show. And what I'll do is, so Radkey had a gig last month at the Cobra Lounge in Chicago. And I'm going to create a playlist loosely based off of their set list from that show. And it'll give you a good taste of the band and both albums. And in it, I'm sure you'll realize the extent of the quality of the songs that they have. And hopefully you'll be as impressed as I am. Now, one thing I want you guys to know, with the corona crisis, it's affecting obviously a lot of our entertainment industry, both, musicians and, clubs, venues, sound engineers, road crew, everybody. And Radkey, for the most part, have been road hogs. I mean, road hogs in the oldest of old school ways, where many bands now are trying to make it in their living rooms and on YouTube. These guys have been touring relentlessly for the better part of a decade. I mean, it's like old school touring, right? And with that comes a price. So what I want to do, I want to read you a post the band published on their Facebook page last week. Okay, so this is from Radkey directly, and I quote, "We are full-time independent artists. Everything we do is funded solely by us. We have to buy the merch and music to get it to you. We pay all the expenses, the touring, and everything that comes with the process of putting new music out. With that, live shows make up 99% of our income. You make that happen, and thank you. Things are crazy right now, and we appreciate your support more than ever." They then go to post some links to where you can buy merch and music. They followed that up with a free live performance last Friday from their living room. And they were basically like some of the first artists on social media to reach out to their fans and offer a free kind of stay-at-home live concert campaign. It was great. So do me a favor. Don't let people tell you that rock is dead. It's not. Rock is alive and it's kicking, but we all have a role to keep it that way. So definitely, please put this band on your radar. Go out and buy their music, stream their music, do whatever you can to try and support them. And yes, do yourself a favor and catch them live post-corona when they come to your town. And they're going to come to your town. And you're going to love them. They're so much fun. Just remember to get there early and check out the opening back acts as well, okay? Well, that's a wrap on episode 2 of our Burn Music Show. Man, I would love to do some interviews, maybe in the upcoming shows, and hopefully one day I can interview the cats in Radkey. That'd be great. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed some quality quarantine time with me, and hopefully I've turned you on to a new killer band. If you've made it this far into the podcast, thanks for sticking with me. It's only my second time doing this, and I'm literally talking into my cell phone right now as I sit in my car. I could probably use a mic and a better setup, so you can help by sharing the show and subscribing wherever podcasts are played. It would be much appreciated. Also, please follow us, Burn Music Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as I'll be adding playlists and more content shortly. Thanks again, and keep on rocking.